Hey guys, Rag and Dragon here. Today I'm going to review this book, How Emotions Are Made by Lisa Feldman Barrett. This is a really unique book. I would suggest that anyone who's interested in emotion or how the mind works to read this book. What she's really attacking in this book is the notion that emotions such as fear, anger, satisfaction, or jealousy or pretty much any emotion that you can think of has some sort of innate essence. Because if it was true that for example, let's say, does fear have some innate essence? Is it um, a definable thing that really exists? Then there would be some property which we could measure in people that, every time someone feels afraid, then there's certain things happen in your body, and that we can objectively say that yes, based on the way that we measure and define fear, it happened, or no, it didn't happen. But if you really look at the evidence in neuroscience, we don't see that to be the case. For example, take facial expressions. You can't always tell whether someone is afraid by looking at their facial expression. I mean, certainly we have certain facial expressions that we associate with fear, but not everyone who is afraid manifests those expressions, and not every time someone manifests those expressions, they are afraid. And the same thing with happiness or uh, any other emotion that you can think of. And the same is true if you do neuroimaging studies inside the brain to look at which parts of the brain are activating, which parts are firing. You can't clearly map certain emotions with certain mental states when those mental states are, excuse me, you can't map certain emotions with certain neurons or certain regions of the brain necessarily. Some people, even when they lose a region of the brain that is associated, that's more active when people are feeling a certain emotion, such as the region, the amygdala is associated with aggression. But that doesn't mean that only the amygdala uh, is creates aggression, because other parts of the brain can also create aggression. And when there's damage to the amygdala, someone can still be aggressive, and then other parts of the brain will light up. And basically, different parts of the brain can light up for the same emotion. So there's no clear fingerprint, there's no clear footprint to any particular emotion. And Feldman Barrett argues that emotions are socially constructed, because if you look at other cultures, some of them don't have emotions that we think of as very basic in Western culture. And some of them have emotions that we don't think of. So, what are emotions, according to this book, is that they are concepts, just like your concept of an airplane. And what is a concept? Does an airplane have some sort of essence? Um, it has does it have it has two wings, but maybe some airplanes have four wings. It flies through the sky, but maybe an airplane is in a museum. It doesn't fly anymore, but you still recognize it as an airplane. Well, concepts, the essence of concepts are defined by their purpose. So when I think of an airplane, what I'm trying to do is really I'm trying to communicate some concept to somebody else, and I hope that you'll understand that word. And I'm using that word for the purpose of communication. And emotional concepts like fear and anger and satisfaction are the same. Um, they exist for communication so that myself and you and we can get along in society and have some sort of approximate consensus as far as what we are feeling, and understand each other through that. And she also argues that once we form these concepts, they actually change the wiring in our brains so that our neurons actually um, become disposed towards these concepts. And this is evolutionarily efficient because um, it means that I don't have to if I communicate that I say I'm angry, that means a whole host of things to you from your experience, that I can just communicate all of that through the one word of anger. So what emotions are really the socially constructed concepts for a purpose of communication. Um, uh, and what it does is it makes communication more efficient. It makes our minds more efficient. Through this one concept, we can understand many different things. So and then there's more. There's a more general view of the mind in this book that um, the mind is really an active thing. You're always uh, thinking about something or feeling something and going in some direction, right? Even if you don't have any stimulus, even if you're just closing your eyes and it's silent, your mind will still wander and it will still feel and it will still go somewhere. Try stilling your mind and not thinking about anything. It's very hard to do. Um, and so what you're always doing is you're creating a reality, and then your your senses are either validating or invalidating that reality, but you're always going out and making a prediction about your internal state and your external state. So basically, basically what she's presenting is a much more flexible idea of the mind in this book, and there's neuroscience to back it up. And then she looks at, well, what are the implications of this for our criminal justice system? What are the implications for your mental health and illness? And in that case, the connection between mind and body, the difference between mind and body as a dichotomy is not uh, as you'll see, it's not as stark as you might think. And in fact, a lot of time, pain, real pain that you feel in your body, is generated in your mind, um, which may seem counterintuitive, but it actually is true. To keep this short, I won't go into it, but I can relate to that part. So yeah, it's an interesting book. Some parts of it are speculative, um, and it's a controversial claim because in many ways it's going against a lot of neuroscience, but it's also supported by a lot of neuroscience. So it's still a controversial area, but I would recommend this book for anyone who's interested in the topic. It's definitely a very interesting and provocative read.